Chapter 7. Ben waited until Hatchet and Flip were sleeping. Then he went to work, as quietly as possible, on an unusual sort of construction project. He started by building a walkway along the exterior of Fort Lot, above the second-story windows and below the ones on the third story. The walkway was narrow, just 2 blocks wide, and he extended it all around the fortress. Then he enclosed the walkway so that he built a hallway of sorts, one with no doors or windows, built right up against the outer wall of the fortress. It was perfectly symmetrical and made of the same stone as the fortress itself, which was in abundant supply in the surrounding mountain. If you hadn't known to look for it, you'd never have known it was there. He left Johnny there, enclosed in the narrow hallway. As Ben prepared to place the last stone, Johnny looked out at him through the empty space. The zombie boy's head was tilted quizzically. "I'll come back for you," Ben whispered. "For now, I need you where they can hear you, but can't see you." Then he placed the final block of stone, sealing Johnny away. The next part of his plan was even trickier. It required the utmost stealth and caution. Ben built his way to the very top of the fortress, then entered through the rooftop, tiptoeing as he went. He hoped he remembered where to find the brewing stand. Ben watched as Flip awoke with a start. The boy had heard something, a sound that didn't belong in the safety of the fortress, or had he only dreamed it? Ben recognized the groggy confusion on Flip's features, but Flip had no idea that Ben was in the room, watching. "Hatchet!" Flip said urgently. "Do you hear that?" "What?" said Hatchet, slow to wake. A low growl sounded. "That!" said Flip. "You heard that, right?" "It's just a zombie," Hatchet said, turning over in her bed. "Just a zombie?" Flip echoed. "That sound is definitely coming from inside the fortress." There are no zombies in the fortress," said Hatchet. "We looked everywhere. It's probably outside." She added. She added. "But it's daytime," argued Flip. Hatchet sighed, finally giving up on going back to sleep. She planted her heavy feet on the ground. She had slept in her armor, boots and all, and she cast a murderous look in Flip's direction. "I'm sure there's a perfectly reasonable explanation," she said. But when another ground sound, Hatchet jumped out of bed, alarmed. She spun in a circle. "Okay, that sounded like it was right behind me." "That's what I've been saying," said Flip. "But there was nothing there." "That's what I've been saying," said Flip. And then suddenly a torch fell from the wall. Hatchet and Flip both shrieked in surprise. It took everything Ben had not to laugh. Being invisible sure had its perks. Hatchet and Flip ran from the bedroom and into the hallway. Ben followed, invisible to their eyes and as silent as he could be. Fortunately, Johnny, left alone in the complete enclosed hallway, chose that moment to make more noise. "No!" "It's a zombie," said Flip. Ben knocked down another torch, and another. The light in the hallway dimmed. "It's a ghost," said Hatchet. They stepped away from the fallen torches and right onto a pressure plate that Ben had hidden in the floor while they slept. All the hallway's many doors slammed open and at the same moment. It's zombie ghost!" cried Flip. A whole horde of them. Run! shouted Hatchet. As they fled down the hallway, Ben followed, knocking down torches and hitting a series of pressure plates so that the doors all shut and then opened and shut once again. His potion exploded just as the pair bolted out Fort Watts' open front gate. But that was perfect timing. Hatchet and Flip kept running, not daring to look back, and Ben finally allowed himself to laugh. Chapter 8. The the day after Bobbie's confrontation with other Ben started out like any other day. Bobbie watched from the shadows as other Ben packed up his things and then hurried to meet Logan at the front of the horde. She thought he might look back in the direction of her hiding spot, but he didn't. Spare her a glance. To be fair, he needed to keep both eyes on the zombies as he removed the fence in order to stay out of the clawing grasp. It was a highly hazardous job. The rest of the day was a slow, trudging march, with Bobbie hanging back just out of range of the back row of zombies. But when Logan sounded the going horn calling for a stop to the march, Bobbie was certain it wasn't night yet. Why had they traveled such a short distance? She hated to think it, but what if she'd been wrong about other Ben? What if he'd sold her out to Logan? She had no choice but to fight, but while Logan was spoiling for a fight, it wasn't with her. What are you doing? Hissed other Ben as he reappeared at the back of the horde, replacing the fencing he'd just taken down a little while ago. Why are you still following us? Because I've got a sneaking suspicion you're up to no good, Bobbie answered. The hundreds of zombies were my first clue. Other Ben bit his lip as he placed another piece of fence. He appeared to be debating whether or not to tell her something. What is it? Bobbie asked. Why do we stop? None of your business, said Other Ben. Stop following us. And stop trying to turn me against Logan. He put the last piece of fence down more forcefully than necessary. He's my friend. You're not. At that, he stomped away, heading around the fence toward the front of the horde. And that's when Bobbie noticed a beam of sunlight in the tunnel up ahead. It was a narrow shaft shining down from above, as if someone had cut a single block out of the tunnel's high ceiling. Logan had gone above ground. Bobbie knew she had to follow. Breathing fresh air for the first time in days, feeling the sunlight on her skin, Bobbie felt her spirits lift despite the urgency of her mission. The tunnel she'd been walking, she knew, had taken them under the ocean that bordered Logan's fortress. She had walked to a completely different continent, right under the sea. She emerged in a jungle packed thick with towering trees, strung with vines. So she heard whistling and squawking from above. A parrot? She'd never seen one before. She scanned the canopy, then hopped up a steep ridge to get a better view. The view was more interesting than she anticipated. In the middle distance, across a high plateau, was a tower. It was impressively tall, made of wood and stone, and its slanted rooftop almost appeared to be stretching for the sun. She could see figures moving along its various levels. They were people! Villagers! Bobbie could hardly believe her luck. Villagers meant supplies, maybe even help against Logan, or at the very least, a sympathetic ear. After so long on her own, Bobbie craved the company of other people. She never heard a vertical village before, but she'd seen a lot of strange things since leaving Plaintown. It only made sense that the strangeness would be more pronounced here, on an entirely different continent. She went across the plateau as fast as her vehicle would take her. Hello, she cried, waving her arms. Hi there! A sound of alarm went up as soon as the figures became aware of her presence. Within seconds, an arrow flew toward her and embedded itself in the dirt at her feet. Bobbie stopped in her tracks. She took a big step back and put her hands up. She lived with villagers all her life, and she never seen one do anything aggressive. Aggressive. Even when zombies had attacked her village, the people there hadn't shot arrows. They fled. Could these villagers really be so different? There's no need for hostility, she shouted up at the tower. I come in peace. Several more arrows flew through the air, and Bobbie turned and ran back the way she come. Why does everyone want to fight all the time? She cried. Doesn't anyone ever just want to sit down with a bowl of soup and talk? An arrow whizzing past her head was the only answer she received. Judging by the angle it traveled, it had been shot from ground level. One of the tower dwellers was following her. Bobbie jumped behind a tree trunk and drew her sword. She could hear the pursuer drawing near. Fine, you want to fight? She said. We'll fight. Bobbie stepped out from behind the tree, holding her sword high. Her attacker looked like an average villager, but with gray skin and sleek leather armor. On her back, hoisted high above her head, the figure wore a banner with a scowling face. She heard stories of people like this, not villagers, but pillagers, known for their aggression and their vicious crossbows. Bobbie felt a moment of doubt. She could prevail in a battle against a pillager. She was about to find out. Chapter 9. Ben found that he quite enjoyed having the entire fortress all to himself. Well, all to himself. He let Johnny out of the hallway enclosure by breaking through a second-story wall as soon as Hazard and Flip had fled. Now Johnny had to run of the fortress too. The zombie boy still won his lead, but Ben decided not to tie him to a post. The place was locked up tight, so Johnny couldn't wander too far. Logan had emptied a lot of his loot chests before leaving, but a person could carry only so much, and so Logan had left behind more than a few useful items. Ben found a few armor upgrades, used items that he was able to cobble up into better shape on a courtyard anvil. There were plentiful potions and fresh milk, and choice cuts of meat, which he cooked in one of the many furnaces lining the dining hall. He even found a pristine white bone for Johnny to gnaw on. He didn't care to wonder where the bone had come from. There were a few odd touches, such as charged creeper's head in the trophy room. Touches, such as a charged creeper head in a trophy room. The courtyard's turtle pen had been emptied of turtles, although some skewed had been left behind for some reason. And for some reason, the pig pen had what looked like some kind of iron fence. Those small oddities aside, the fortress was a tremendous improvement over Ben's previous circumstances. In the bedroom, since becoming an adventurer, Ben had been constantly on the move, rarely staying in the same place for more than a night or two, building temporary shelters out of whatever pieces of debris he could dig up. His most recent semi-permanent shelter, the one he lost to a creeper, had left a lot to be desired. By contrast, Logan's abandoned bedroom was the height of luxury, with paintings on the walls, lanterns instead of torches, and a soft bed dyed a peaceful shade of blue. Ben made himself comfortable. It was an easy thing to do. One particular painting sort of creeped him out. However, it was dominated by the image of a skull. He turned away from it, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the skull was looking at him. Comfortable or not, comfortable Ben or not, he'd never be able to get to sleep with skeletal eye sockets pointing right at him. He groaned, lifting himself from the bed and crossing the room. Then he unceremonially slapped the painting off the wall. To his surprise, there was a hidden compartment behind the painting, a gap in the otherwise uniform stonework. But there weren't any riches or rare weapons stashed away. The only thing in the compartment was a book. That was unusual, to say the least. The boys had spent a lot of time together, and Ben knew very well that Logan wasn't much of a reader, and he certainly wasn't the type of person to treat a book as if it were a precious treasure. What sort of book was this, exactly? Ben cracked the cover to take a look. The pages within were filled with handwriting, Logan's handwriting. Ben quickly slammed the book shut. It was obvious that this was Logan. Logan had kept a journal. This was news to Ben. Either it was a new hobby that Logan had taken up since they parted ways, or else Logan had been very careful to keep the journal from Ben's view. The latter possibility hinted at secrecy bordering on paranoia. But Ben had already accepted that he really never really known Logan. Not truly. He reached again for the journal, hesitated. It would be wrong to read it, right? It would be. Just then, a shadow fell over Ben. He shrieked, spinning around. I wasn't doing anything wrong. Johnny stood in the doorway with a blank expression on his face. Clearly, the young zombie wasn't judging Ben for being a snoop. The guilt Ben felt was coming entirely from within himself. This is me being a good role model, Ben said, and he replaced the creepy painting, leaving the book where he found it. Just remember, if you're ever timid to read your sister's journal, the private. Johnny impended a rasping breath. The boy had seemed listless all day, wandering from room to room as if looking for something. Ben wondered, how much did Johnny remember? Did he realize that this was the last place that he and Ben had seen Bobbie? Did he expect to find her here? Come on, said Ben. Come on, come with me. I want to show you something. He led Johnny to the center of the fortress, to the now empty chamber where Logan had kept his countless zombies pinned. Ben looked up at the balcony from which Logan had kept an eye on the horde. He could almost imagine his old friend looking down at him in disapproval, eager for the entertainment of watching Ben battle and succumb to a constant wave of the undead. Ben shook it off, bringing his eyes back to ground level. He was standing in the very spot Bobbie had stood when she sent them racing down a tunnel to safety. But where had she gone from there? There were several tunnels leading off the central chamber. They all been blocked off. Ben recognized the tunnel he and Johnny had traveled through, but Logan and Bobbie might have taken any of the other tunnels. There was no way to know for certain which direction to take, and choosing poorly could mean that Bobbie would be lost to them forever. Ben hoped to see his friend again, and he suddenly hoped to return her zombified brother to her care. Raising a zombie was a lot of work. She'll come back one day, said Ben. One day, she'll bust through one of these walls and tell us all about her adventure. And I'll bet she'll have a cure for you too, she said, patting Johnny's head. But in the meantime, you and I are going to stay here, where it's safe, where the beds are soft, and where we have all the food we can eat. Johnny growled, and it sounded like disagreement. I'm sorry, but that's final, said Ben. What would you suggest? That we pick a tunnel at random? get hopelessly lost? We don't know what Logan was planning, and we don't have any way to find out. Johnny gnawed on his bone and blinked. His beady little eyes seemed to gaze into Ben's soul and call him rude names. Ben realized his mistake. He did have one way to learn more about Logan's plans. "Oh man," he said, remembering that eerie skull painting and what it hid. "I'm totally going to have to read Logan's journal, aren't I?" He had a feeling it wouldn't have nice things to say about him.